Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk about the world happiness. Since my data is collected from the World Happiness Report, here is some information about the survey. And for here is the happiness score and ranks. And here is some information about what is the scores. The happiness score is affected by those 6 factors: economy, production, social support, life expectancy, freedom, absence of corruption, and generosity contributes to make life evaluation higher in each country than they are in dystopia. Dystopia is the country where imagine it has the world lowest elation average for each of those 6 factors. They have low impact on the total score reported for each country, but they do explain why some countries rank higher than others. Here are the 3 research questions I'm going to focus on. The first one is how it changed in region, countries, or years. How does the 6 factors contribute to happiness scores? And the last one is I feel like most people think the better economy means the greater happiness score. So I just want to know, is that true for my dataset? This is the dirty dataset. For this one is collected in 2015. Totally I have 3 datasets. So for each one is in different year. As we can see, for this dataset, it has the country, region, happiness rank, happiness score, and those other factors. So, but there is no column for the year. So if I'm going to combine the 3 datasets, I need to add one column for the year first together. Here is how I clean the dataset. So what I did is select those columns and change the longer name to the shorter name. Then combine 3 datasets together by using R-band. Here is the clean dataset. So as we can see, here is the new column for the year, and the happiness score, the rank, and those other factors. The first thing I did is corporate. So from the output, we can see the economy and health is stronger correlated to the happiness score, but for the generosity, it has the weaker relation with the happiness score. Since for the first research question, I want to know how is the difference for happiness score in region, in country, or by years. So I feel like world the maps is the best way to say that. So the first step I did is to find the country's name, which I can't find in the world maps, but it in the data. So so these are what I did. Then I add those names into my world map data. Then here is the steps how I draw the world map. The first graph is the happiness score in 2015. Here is another year. Here is in 2017. Here are the 3-year world maps. So for the darker color means the lower happiness score, Actually, it's very hard to see how it changed by year, but it's very clear to see the highest heavily score are mostly in the north and the south of America, in the Western Europe, and in Australia, and the most lowest heavily score in the Africa. Then I was focusing on those country who has uh, who has the highest happy score. Then I make a table for that. Then I arranged it by the happy score. So that means the first rows contains the country in that year has the lowest happy score. Then I select the top 16 happy score. Here is the bottom 28 happy score table. Then I draw the time series graph. Here is more clear to see how it changed for the highest happy score countries. As we can see, some of them decreasing, some of them increasing, one of them no change. For this one is for the bottom 28 happy score countries. So for some of them are increasing, some of them decreasing, some of them no change. Actually, for the time series graphs, it it doesn't help so now. So I moved to the second research question, which is focused on the economy. So for here, I did a graph for the habit score and the economy. The economy is the GDP. So as we can see, most countries are here. So for this country, they have high habit score, but they don't have the highest GDP. Also, we can say for the lower GDP country, they have very high habit score than others. Here is the graph for the low habit score countries. So as we can see, most of countries GPA is between the lowest GPA and the highest GPA, but the habit score is very high. So from those two graphs I did, I found the higher GPA doesn't mean the higher habit score in the most case. One of my research questions is about the factors contribution. So what I did here is sum up the habit score and other factors. Since the habit score sum equal to economy sum plus the family sum plus those factors sum. Then I create a new data frame, and one is the names, another one is the percent. Here is the 3-pie graph for the highest score countries. Since I feel like a 3-pie graph is very clear to see the factors contribution. As we can see here, the unexplained factor has the most part of the contribution, and then is the economy, family, and the generosity and generosity and the trust contributes very nice. For this graph is for the low habit score countries. As we can see, the unexplained factor contributes the most. And then is the family, then is the economy. For the generosity contributes very nice, and the trust also contributes a little bit. This is my conclusion. So for the first research question, we found that higher scores are mostly in the north and the south of America, Western Europe, and Australia. The lower heavily score are mostly in the Africa. And for the second one, we found there is no big change for heavily score by years or in the regions. The third one is the higher GDP doesn't mean the higher heavily score. The next one is no matter for high heavily score countries or lower heavily score countries, the trust and the generosity contributes to the heavily scoreness, and then unexplained and the family contributes the most. That's all for my project. Thank you for listening.